Well, I don't have to wear shades, but Tom Cruise does. Anyway, here we are. It's 8:14, and it's time for Week 5 assignments. I'm Greg Parsons, and we're past the halfway point, and I thought it was time to change things up a little bit with new music and a different picture to start the class. We're also changing subjects in that we're moving into a new aspect of leadership theories and research, and these are called the situational sometimes, or called the contingency models of leadership. And we'll be looking at some of the key elements that led into that. And the first couple of readings have to do with Kurt Lewin's work and the Harwood studies, which form the foundation of organizational development. And also, he did a lot of work with organizational change. And so when we talk about leadership, a lot of times we associate that with change. Well, for leaders to constitute change, to affect change, they have to be able to make change happen in their followers. So this is actually important background to have. We'll also be looking at the Tannenbaum and Schmidt, who are the developers of the continuum, and we'll be ending up with Fiedler, who also is an important contributor when we get to contingency theories. So a few more readings this week, but that's to be expected because the field is getting richer. The field has more contributors to it. There's more things to look at, even though we're staying within a particular framework of models. The discussion for this week is how the early contingency theories contribute to the evolution of leadership research. So you need to attach it to the previous theories. You can do a little bit of preliminary saying how we've gotten to this point because we kind of understood the trait theories, and then we built upon that and developed the behavioral theories, and now this is the next step in terms of adding new features to the theories to make them more effective in understanding particular situations. So this whole idea of exploring the literature, going into the things that have been written, the articles and the journals, is related to this concept of streams of literature, sometimes called bodies of literature. And it's extremely important to understand this concept and to learn how to deal with it effectively, to learn how to work within streams of literature. And I only use that term is because here at our school, this has become kind of the terminology, and since you'll see it in different classes, it's useful to think of streams of literature as what we're talking about here. So, what are they? What are streams of literature? Well, it's really all the work related to a particular subject. It could be published research papers, books, speeches. We tend to focus on peer-reviewed literature because that means it has a degree of validity and you can kind of trust it. It also supplies the resources of where did it come from, who was it based on, whose work came before. It's also then easy to trace in other work that have cited it. If you ever use Google Scholar to find out which work has been used, a particular article has cited it, you can kind of trace the stream of literature forward from that. So it could be about really anything, but usually we're looking at things that are based on well-accepted theory. For example, trait theory was a well-accepted theory. It didn't meet all the needs, but it was certainly well-established in the literature. The same with the behavioral theories, and now the same with the situational theories. So the subject is usually based around some sort of well-accepted theory that people then write about. Normally we try to use peer-reviewed journal articles, and in addition to that, we like to have articles that are taken from top-notch journals in the field. Okay, so that's the first level, that's the gold standard. When you start using online journals or things that are less highly regarded in the field, those can be used, however they don't establish the same level of quality. And then when you move into articles or blogs or things that may give you ideas but aren't peer-reviewed, then that becomes a little bit suspicious because we don't know whether it's true or not, has been validated by anybody outside of the author himself or herself. Okay, so there's kind of a tiered setting of how important and how valid articles are, information is, when you're looking at a particular stream of literature. Okay. When you're writing a dissertation, one of the chapters is called the Lit Review, the literature review, and the idea is when you're writing a literature review, you tend to stay within a particular stream of literature. So what could the subject be? Well, technically it could be anything. You could have a stream of literature on the universe, or you could have a stream of literature on anything, government. However, from a practical standpoint, that would include everything that's ever been written or related to everything that's been written on that particular subject. So it becomes so wide or so broad that it has no particular value, because you could never explore it all, and you would encounter so many different definitions. So leadership, of course, is a subject. It's something that we're teaching. It's a concentration. Some schools have programs in leadership, so it's well known, it's well understood. Except when you actually dig below the first layer, you realize there are all kinds of definitions and interpretations, and what it means, and who it affects, and what we're actually talking about. So there, if you decided you were going to use leadership as a stream of literature, you would really be entering the ocean of literature rather than one particular stream. However, other subjects that seem like they're more defined don't have any peer-reviewed journal articles or theory to support them, and thus they become also fairly impractical as an academic stream of literature, because there's no background to them at this point. Not to say that social media and organizations will not have a strong literature stream in a year, 5 years, but realizing the publishing cycle, things don't get published immediately. It's not like you're writing in the computer and all of a sudden it's published. It gets submitted for review, it gets reviewed, it may be sent back for revision, and then to find a slot, even if it's accepted, to find a slot in a journal, it may not get published for another year. So we probably have things in the pipeline now that may start to establish a stream of literature and theoretical basis of social media in organizations. However, at this point, if you search on it and start looking at it, there's really not that much there. Not enough to do a dissertation on. Okay. So how do streams of literature connect to theory? Now, this particular example isn't from transformational leadership class. It's not from leadership. It's about management. But the concept holds. So suppose we're interested in trying to look at management theory and look at its development. And so we would start out back in the late 1800s with Frederick Taylor and examine the work that he did, and then we'd find, when looking at Taylor, that Henri Fayol, the Frenchman, also contributed ideas that became important to the understanding of management. And then a guy named Max Weber from Germany developed some ideas on bureaucracies and organizational development. Mary Parker Follett instituted and contributed to the human relations view of management. Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne experiments with regards to how social interaction in the workplace affected productivity was important. So these were all contributors building upon this stream of literature, and the work that they did started to develop this, evolve this theory of what management actually is, what the theory of management is. Abraham Maslow entered in with the idea of workers needed to be motivated, so he began to do work in human motivations. Miller came in with systems theories in the 1950s, and Boulding contributed to that. Herb Simon also worked with systems theories, and more recently J. Lawrence and Lorsch contributed to contingency theories of management. Okay, so if you follow the stream from the 1800s up to current times, you'll find a whole series of different authors and writings from those authors that produce this, what we would call, stream of literature. But of course, this is the Mississippi River. This is huge. This would entail so much different literature that there's no way you could use this as a stream, but it's an example of how a stream develops. In the early days with Taylor, Fayol, Weber, when people were just starting to write about it, yes, there was a fairly narrow stream that people who were actually trying to do research in management. But as the field gained momentum and there were more publications about it, it became a field that people could write about. Obviously, people did, and it became much more widely accepted and written about. So let's take a look at sort of like what comes off of one of these main tributaries to the stream of management theory. For example, if you look at Maslow, he developed a concept of the hierarchy of needs, which everybody should be familiar with. So let's say he started here and he contributed his knowledge to the stream of management theory. But then Maslow also had people writing in the area of human motivation, and they were coming from different schools. So Alderfer with his ERG theory, and Max Neef, Hertzberg, Murray's system of needs, Juan Antonio Lopez, McGregor, the Theory X, Theory Y inventor. So all these people then built off Maslow, or contributed to Maslow. They saw an intersection with his work. And again, so this map of interrelated theories in our academic writing, you see, becomes very broad-based. And that's why you need to focus on something. Another way of looking at literature is to think of it as more like a tree rather than a river. And so if we pick any particular theory, for example, contingency theories, this is appropriate, we're talking about contingency theories in leadership, but suppose contingency theories in management. There's a corollary in management that says the way you manage depends on the situation. Contingency theory in management evolved out of the classical management theories, the human relations theories, and the systems theories, which all preceded it. So it was based upon existing theory, and people found then that there were additional things that needed to be examined and explained. So contingency theory was developed. But they didn't stop there. Out of contingency theory, we came up with ideas like the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are used in strategy analysis. We came up with ideas of the importance of organizational culture in managing. We came up with leadership theories. Okay, remember, management as a field of study existed before business leadership was studied. It's sort of like at one point they were considered the same thing, and at another point they kind of diverged off, where you look at them as kind of two separate fields. But again, all these additional streams of literature, game theory, global management, stakeholder theories, all came out of the basic theories that came before it. So again, so is that where it ends? Are we finished? Well, not really, because if you look at the stakeholder theory, the branch and the leaves there, that's generally attributed to R. Edward Freeman, coming up with the idea of stakeholder theory in the 1980s. Charles Blattberg kind of didn't like the idea and wrote kind of against it because he felt it was too broad-based and couldn't be proven or couldn't be experimented with. Then we have a whole series of other people who wrote in the field and began drawing in other aspects or perspectives that utilize stakeholder theory as their literature stream. Okay. At this point, you go into any one of these authors and see what their writing was and find other people who've contributed to what they've done. So whether you look at it as a river or whether you look at it as a tree, the idea is that all this literature is networked together. It's all built upon it. And your job as a student doing research is not to expect you're going to know everything about everything, but you're going to be able to pick and follow a particular river or branch and pick out the information that's important to what you plan to use as your topic. So many times we find that students just are too broad in their approach. They pick a big topic and think they're going to be writing something about a big topic, and that just doesn't work that way for dissertations. So you've got to break it down, and the way that I think explains it best would be to look at how maybe schools are broken down. If you go to a university, we'll have different schools or different colleges within the university that specialize on different areas of knowledge. So if we're working in social sciences, and business is considered a social science. So you go within a school and there'll be maybe a college or a school of business. And then you go inside the school of business and walk down the hallway and you'll see that there's departments, and there's departments of management and departments of marketing and finance and accounting, and there'll be specialized faculty that work in those particular areas. But even within these categories, you'll find a breakdown where certain people work in management, but they're specialists in organizational behavior, or they're specialists in strategic management or leadership. Then, within strategic management, for example, you'll find that there are different schools of thought. There's Mintzberg's anti-design school. There's Michael Porter's five forces school. There's Jay Barney's resource-based theory. So there's a bunch of different schools of thought within strategic management that you would have to look at. And taking it a step further, if you chose to work in the area of Michael Porter's work, well, he wrote a lot of different things, and a lot of people have written about him, so you're still too broad. So now you've got to look within Porter's work at a particular theory that you thought was relevant. So one of the ideas was strategic groups, where he said competitors operate against not everybody in the industry, but groups that try to do things the same way that they do. But even within strategic group theory, that may be too broad, and you may need to look at something like strategic group theory as applied to emerging markets. And even within that, so which emerging markets? So then you get down to a geographic area. So you're going to be working with Porter's theories of strategic groups within emerging markets in Africa. At that point, you are probably narrow enough that you're going to be able to control the literature that you're going to be able to look at, and you're going to come up with something that's fairly specific and doable. So dissertation topics. Could you write a dissertation on latte sizes? Probably not. Probably not. Number one, there probably wouldn't be a lot of literature on it. And exactly what would you be saying? What would you be contributing to the field of lattes by doing a dissertation on sizes? In the same respect, would a dissertation on Baywatch be appropriate, even in the Department of Marine Biology? Again, probably not. What theories would you be contributing to by doing a dissertation on a television series, regardless of how attractive it was? So we'll definitely shut down dissertations, and hopefully you will be able to cross them off your list as potential topics when you start trying to do something that just doesn't fit the normal agenda of a dissertation. And that's why the prospectus template is so important. It guides you down a path that you're actually going to choose something that can be done. So the key to success, well, we're still looking at the different theories. We're studying the streams of literature within leadership, and you should be looking for really not describing the theory, but looking at what's in it, what's underlying it, how does it tie together with other theories, where are there differences, what are people saying about it, what are the experts saying about the particular theories. There should be divergent points of view, where some people will say contingent theory is the way to go, it's the best approach. Others will say it doesn't cover enough, or it covers things in a way that are too vague. So you should understand the different viewpoints and the consensus. Well, it may require a loss of some sleep, but on the other hand, it's kind of a requirement. So you do have to learn how to read a lot, come up with ideas about it. So we're going to finish things up here. Use the sources from previous weeks. You can reuse things. You don't have to come up with all new literature to make a point. And remember, we're past the halfway point and headed for home. So, until next time, goodbye and good luck.